It's time now for County-Wide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Brad Miller as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives here in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's County-Wide.
Good day and welcome to the program. It is County-Wide, and we're happy to welcome back into studio for part two of a short two-part series. Doug Nintzel. Doug with the Arizona Department of Transportation, ADOT, and you got your yellow turnout here.
I made sure from a safety standpoint this is the message that we are sending. That
our TV viewers cannot miss Doug in our studio today. The bright yellow and orange that we'll be familiar with, roadside maintenance workers and everybody else that's out there we often see. And today, in our first part, we talked a lot. Doug had some great offerings about what to pack in your car, just certain things to do, online resources to be ready for winter driving. And our TV viewers will enjoy seeing some of those: the flashlight, the water, the snacks, the batteries, the phone charger, all those things to have in your vehicle, maybe year-round even, but certainly when we get into wintertime driving, so warm clothing and such. And in our second segment, I want to talk a little bit about the roads, themselves and how we get out there. We were, Doug and I, chatting before the show about the snowplow drivers, and those guys are like, I mean this the right way, ballerinas in their abilities and their artistry, because that's really what it comes down to. It ain't just start the truck and plow it away. It's something.
Well, and I've even gone, Brad, first of all, thanks for having us on, and I've gone through some of the sessions where we have snowplow simulators that are in small trailers, and this gives our employees, our trainees, and even our experienced drivers the chance to, again, brush up on what they're doing, maybe learn that much more. But it's a very realistic situation to be inside the simulator. It's a real truck chair. You're there in front of the screen, steering wheel, all the controls, and it's amazing when you don't have experience being behind the wheel of a snowplow what this is all about. And nerve-wracking for someone like me who's had a chance to be in that chair, and they can create all sorts of scenarios. The snow coming down, how deep is the snow? Are you in town? Are you out on the more rural highway? What kind of situations might happen, whether it's a coyote running across the highway or vehicles that are out there.
Just where's the road?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You're under 8 inches of snow. When the first snowplow comes along, you can see 300 feet of clear space. The road's in there somewhere, but
it's amazing.
My gosh, it really is to
see the work, and I can't say enough about the work that our snowplow operators put in, because you're talking about folks who are working 12-hour shifts when those storms move in. They are so dedicated to getting the job done. It's a massive undertaking as well for the agency. We talk about what the agency has to be prepared to invest in keeping those highways as clear as possible during the winter time, and what it takes. Obviously, you're going to have highways that close down when the snow gets too heavy. We see it each winter that you're going to have a closure of Interstate 40. You'll have Interstate 17 closed in between, say, the Sedona turnoff and Flagstaff itself. These crews are out there working all through the night to get things back open again. And just from a standpoint of the investment that ADOT has to be prepared to make, it can average anywhere in between, I think, $4 and $8 million per winter season. That's the investment we're putting into working on the highways to get them clear of the snow and the ice, the training that goes in to making sure that our snowplow operators are working. But all sorts of things that are out there.
Talk to me about prioritization. If we get, some of these really big events that we had 2 winters ago, like in the Flagstaff area, 30-inch snowfalls and 26-inch snowfalls and things like that. It seems to me heaviest usage is probably going to get the first priority, or how does it work?
That's exactly right. From a priority standpoint, it is going to be figuring out which highways are the priority. And the obvious thing is that the interstates are going to be number 1 on the list due to the volume of traffic, how many folks are using them, how important those highways are, not just from a standpoint of your everyday travel, but the fact that that's so important to commerce. keeping those trucks moving. And then also from a recreational standpoint, the folks in the Phoenix area can't get to the high country to start spending their dollars from a recreational standpoint until we can get those highways clear. So we know how important that is, and we take the steps that are necessary to limit how long a highway needs to be closed. But also, if we can keep them open, we're working through the night to keep those highways clear. And again, I just can't say enough about the work of our operators, whether it's in the Flagstaff district, the Prescott district, and just even from a standpoint of the number of plows that we have available per district, we have more than 200 snow plow units here in the state of Arizona working for ADOT, and more than 40 of them are in the Flagstaff district, which makes sense. You're going to have more than 25 plows in our Prescott district as they are working day and night.
And a few in Mesa, you told me before the show. Who would have thought?
Yeah, who would have thought that you'd have snow plows in the Phoenix area? But we actually have a couple of them stationed at our East Mesa maintenance yard, because that's near State Route 87, and the district boundaries in Phoenix go partway up 87, where the snow still falls. Those crew members have to be ready. I guess the other thing that it leads into is the fact that we have more than 400 employees at ADOT who are trained. They have their commercial driver licenses, and they are trained, if needed, to get on board the snowplows. And that means that some of our Phoenix area employees are ready to respond and head to Flagstaff, head to wherever they're needed in the high country, especially in advance of a storm. We will position them up in the high country so that they're ready to provide the relief that's needed.
For a good chunk of our audience, we're going to be kind of primarily focused, like you said, Prescott, Flagstaff, Verde Valley, these points, 1740, Highway 89A. I know that a real trouble spot when we get to wintertime driving is that area up 87, Payson, Strawberry, up to Heber, Greer. And I mean, we get chains and snow tires.
Correct.
Requirements. That's how kind of thick it gets. Do we just, it seems like when we're in the middle of an event, there's no sense in sending the plows out, but I know that sometimes, how's that determined? Do we wait, snow's done, now we go? Or do we start even before the snow quits falling?
Yeah, you bet. I'm glad you asked the question, Brad, because it is true that folks will start to see, especially in this region, they will see the plows out on the highway, and they might be wondering, well, it's not snowing yet. Why are the plows out already? But what they're actually doing is working with our de-icing agents. We have a liquid form that's known as magnesium chloride.
I'm going to take a break.
Oh, yeah, no problem at all.
Let's come back.
We'll talk about
here again, this was something Doug was sharing with me before, and I think it's very interesting how you do that. There's not just the plow that does the work. In fact, some of the heaviest lifting is done even before the storm. So let's go ahead and take a break, and we'll explore that when we come back. Doug Nensel from ADOT is here, talking about wintertime driving, all the things that go into making a safe experience during the winter. We'll talk about that when we come back to Countywide.
When you're out there, there's no telling what you'll find.
I see it! I see it! Oh, look at you.
There are some moments only the forest can inspire. Find yours at discovertheforest.org.
They say that when you're facing extreme danger, your life flashes before you. If you think that's sad, consider facing it before you even have enough life to flash before your eyes. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Deaths and injuries can be prevented by using the right car seat. Visit safercar.gov/therightseat to know what is appropriate for each age and size.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Ready or not, here I come.
Take time to be a dad today.
Daddy, I'm gonna find you.
Welcome back to the program. Doug Nintzel from ADOT is here again talking about wintertime driving. It is upon us. Now is the time to get ready in the first of our two-part series. And you can catch it on VVTV.com for the video side, preparing your car or your family for safe driving through the winter. And now in this program, talking more about what ADOT does and what happens out there. And you started to say, before I interrupted you for the break, that even before the snows come, sometimes ADOT's on the job.
Right, and the plow crews will be out there and will make a decision that it's time to go ahead and try some preventative measures, and one of those things would be the use of what's known as magnesium chloride. It's not straight rock salt, and that is one of the key things that we're always stressing. It's less harmful than folks have talked about, you know, back east and the rusting of vehicles. The industries have learned a lot about this, and so we are using that. And to put that down ahead of a storm means that the snow and the ice have less of a chance, or it is a delayed situation in terms of the snow and ice bonding to the pavement. It makes it easier to plow. It makes it easier for us to keep the highway as clear as possible. We're always striving to get us back down to that black pavement again. And so that is one thing we use. We also have a product that is known as Ice Slicer. That's in the granule form, and that more likely is going to be used by the crews who are plowing the highways after the highway has the snow and the ice on them. And so that'll be laid down, and just as the name implies, helps us again from a granule standpoint slice through. We've all seen the things about putting some down on the sidewalk to keep the snow and the ice at bay. This is on a larger scale along our highways. And we do know from an environmental standpoint, we have to continue to monitor that situation. We've had success in keeping the highways clear and limiting the problems out there by using this. We have gone away from using the cinders at least as much along our highways. We would still, I guess, have a supply as needed, but we have made the decision that so far, from a public safety standpoint, these de-icing agents really get the job done here in the region. You know, whether it's in the Flagstaff, Prescott regions, or up along the White Mountains.
When you say de-icer, I think maybe others do as well. You think about airplanes.
Oh, you do.
Commercial aircraft, and they use a liquid agent. I don't know if it's the same thing or similar.
I know that our guys aren't out there sweeping any wings, but yes, it
sounds
would
like
be,
it works
it would
in a
be
similar
related.
way.
Right, and these are obviously they are chlorides. It is salt based, but it is not the same as the old rock salt that folks would put down. I guess I should also mention before we get away, as a storm passes through, and we have used those products here in any area, we do recommend that drivers go ahead and take some time after a storm has passed through and the weather improves a bit to go ahead, if you want to take care of things, spray down underneath the underside of your vehicle. If you have any concerns about any of the actions that might be taking place. Again, it's not the same as the corrosion that you would have seen back east, but we do recommend going ahead, spraying the underside of the vehicle and washing some of those agents off.
You've said something a couple of times, and it didn't even occur to me until we began chatting today, and that is the plows work and all this that you've talked about and described so far gets down to getting toward that black pavement. And I think about, you know, while most people think I can drive through 2 inches of snow and probably won't get stuck, and if I kind of have some experience, but you forget you can't see what you're doing. You can't see the road, you can't see the center line, you can't see the side stripe, you can't see, you know, and those kinds of things. So it becomes not just is a vehicle, you know, is the minivan able to cut through that stuff? It's the whole safety issue, not just of snow being a hazard itself, but of being able to have your bearings and know where you're at. A road can look totally different in a snowstorm. You might drive it every day.
From a public safety standpoint, it's important to us that we're going to get that highway back to the black pavement, the safest conditions possible. We talk about black ice and things that will happen after the initial snowstorm, and you start to have the thawing when a storm has passed through, and the slick conditions at nighttime. But what we are always working on is getting back to that black pavement so that drivers have the safest conditions possible.
Yeah. There's, you mentioned black ice. Tell me about bridges. A lot of bridges we'll see in the high country will have that sign, bridges freeze first. What's kind of meant by that? What should drivers know?
Well, just the fact that from a conditioning standpoint and the flow of air beneath the structure itself, and I can't claim to be the greatest expert on that, but the fact of the matter is, because of the temperature situations and the fact that you have an elevated bridge, the bridges do tend to freeze first when we have things going on. So it is important that drivers are concentrating on the things they need to do. Do not push the safety envelope. Make sure you're slowing down, especially around bridges. We talk about slowing down, being cautious, especially around exit ramps, because somebody might be pulling off and slowing down to start making their move to exit. You're coming up behind them. You want to back off. And we've been talking about snowplows, and I think it's very important to mention driving around snowplows. We can't stress it enough. Give those snowplow crews the room they need to operate. Plenty of room behind a snowplow, at least several vehicle lengths.
Yeah.
You don't want to be tailgating right behind a snowplow. First of all, they can throw out quite a bit of snow. It could be in either direction, although most of the time the blade is, designed to send the snow over in that one direction. However, you have to be very cautious in taking that time to pass and go around a snowplow. I guess a lot of folks have experience knowing it's maybe best to stay in line.
Yeah, common sense might suggest
behind the snowplow.
To be careful around that big old elephant snowplow out there. Did the plows end up causing, and I know that I think people have a misconception that the blade just gets rested on the road and the truck just pushes the blade along, and I know that's not quite right. You can see sparks sometimes.
Correct.
I mean, they are right on it. Or very, very close. But do we get, after the winter, I mean, you just think about the heating and cooling conditions. You think about all the moisture, the snow and the rains leaving the high country and that. Do the snowplows end up, are there higher maintenance costs, say, for ADOT in areas where snowplows frequently used?
Well,
does it chop up the road
The
at
good
all?
news, well, you obviously would have some impact of all that work taking place.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things for our northern Arizona highways, and people don't always think about that, and that is one of the design things that we do in working on that, is the fact that you see the depressed areas where the lane stripes are. The lane stripes are actually below the level of the highway itself, along with what normally would be seen as the raised pavement markers that have the reflectors on them. They also are recessed into the pavement so that the snowplows are not taking those off as they're working.
Gotcha.
So that's a key thing as you're driving around in the area. You might notice, I wonder why they do it that way. Well, that's why. Because,
you guys thought of that.
Yeah, we actually did think about something like that. So I think it's more about the action of the actual ice and snow and the freeze and thaw. And the fact that, yes, after a severe winter season, we've got a lot of work to do by springtime when it comes to the potholes that have formed. I'm very familiar with potholes along Interstate 40 on either side of Flagstaff, and that comes with the territory. It's part of our operation, what we have to work on usually each spring. Coming out of a winter season.
It makes all the sense in the world. Let's take another short break. Doug Nintzel from ADOT is here. Wintertime driving is upon us. We'll be back right after this.
I got no balls to losing. Shocking drives it road all the time. Just had a few drinks. Just can't be happening.
Are we clear?
Clear. We just buzzed. Just buzzed? You didn't tell us that, sir. You're right. This isn't happening. You'll be fine.
I feel good.
Really?
No, not really.
Buzz driving.
Clear.
Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal.
Shocking.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things. Like someone is having a stroke. Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. Time to call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Learn the body language and spot a stroke fast.
Fire can happen at any time. What would you try to save?
My family photos.
My grandfather's war memorabilia.
My dogs.
I'm firefighter Brandon Wacker with the Cotton Fire Department. A working smoke detector is your best defense in the event of a fire. Make sure you have a smoke detector in every room except your kitchen. Test them monthly and change the battery once a year. Take the time to save the things you can't replace.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
We welcome you back to the program as we conclude our two-part series, a very informative couple of visits with Doug Nintzel from ADOT. And we appreciate you coming up from Phoenix.
Thank you, Brad.
And sharing what's going to be coming every winter as it does to the Northland. You've touched on a couple of cost things. I think you estimated $4 to $8 million kind of per season or roughly.
Correct.
But the plows themselves have to be maintained, I guess, after every winter, even during the winter sometimes. And
even going into those kinds of costs. And we do say, depending on how severe the season is, we can count on investing between $4 and $8 million in the operations that go into keeping the highways clear. Yeah. It's more complicated than that, but also even maintaining a snowplow on average each year, it's about $8,000 invested. We have more than 200 plows around the state of Arizona, many of them in the high country regions.
Sure.
So it does cost money, but we're do to it from a public safety standpoint. It's the top priority to really work to keep those highways clear.
And ADOT doesn't plow the city streets in Flagstaff.
Yeah, that's important to know, that it's not all about what ADOT does, but yes, on the smaller city streets, you're going to find that the city of Flagstaff, for example, they have their own plow crews, they have their own fleet of plows, and they're doing that work. ADOT's working on the state highway system.
Yeah, we get those. Let's, as we wrap up, we talked about in our first segment, the first show, about information, great online resources, telephone resources for folks, whether it's a storm or just an event or just traffic in general. Is it the az511.gov, correct?
Yeah, az511.gov is a great place to find out about highway restrictions, the conditions that are out there, and then if you want to check on safety tips, things that you can find out, even the things we've talked about, go ahead to www, but it's azdot.gov/no snow. Again, that's KNOW, as in know your snow.
Gotcha.
But know your snow, and that'll take you right to our page that deals with the winter preparedness.
Get yourself ready for that winter driving. Doug, thank you very much.
You bet, Brad. Thanks for having us on.
Great information, good stuff, everything you need to know to have a good, safe winter on the highways of northern Arizona. It's our program, and we'll see you next time.
This has been County-Wide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Listen in each Tuesday and Thursday as we tackle the hot topics and talk to the decision makers across Yavapai County. That's County-Wide with Brad Miller and Paul David each Tuesday and Thursday on this Yavapai Broadcasting station.